Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blasted Process 4, where we are in the middle of the Sonic block. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for working with us. We have Sonic Rush with SB55 and Kirby Master on comms.
Hey, I'm Kirby, and we have Speedbreaker playing the game.
Hi, yeah, it's me, SB55 or Speedbreaker 55. Sonic Rush is one of the first of the series.
So what? Yeah, is there anything you want to say before we?
Well,
dive in?
you know, not really. Let's get to it.
Let's just dive in. Feel free to give a countdown.
Sure. 5, 4, 3,
I can give it 3, 2, 1,
and
go.
Start.
Woo! Yeah, so Sonic Rush is the first 2D Sonic platformer to come out on Nintendo DS, I believe, and is the first of what we call the Sonic Rush trilogy. There's Sonic Rush Adventure, and then Colors DS, which is basically Sonic Rush 3. And right now, Speedbreaker is playing the all stages category of Sonic, which is effectively any percent without the extra fluff of things like cutscenes and stuff. So he's going to be going through the stage select, beating every single stage and boss. And well, as you can see, this game has boost mode, and introduced the boost mechanic as a whole to the Sonic series. So yeah, the left meter you see on the left side is the boost meter, and you also see Speedbreaker down just before the goal ring. That's because the faster you run through the goal ring, the longer it takes for it to stop, which loses real time. But if you want to go for like an in-game time personal best, then you want to just hit it as fast as you can. But for the purposes of this run, it looks like Speedbreaker is going to be going for real time. Doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, this is Leaf Storm, and first act I kind of went through really quickly. And Leaf Storm doesn't really have too many gimmicks per se, so there's going to be a lot of shortcuts he takes with tricking off of ramps and such, because in this game, similarly to Sonic Advance 2 and 3, when you go off of a diagonal or vertical spring or a ramp, you can also do a trick. You can do a trick upwards or diagonally or sideways, and Sonic's tricks are very fast, so they're very good for just like shooting you forward really quickly, giving you a little bit of height or a little bit of a both. In Blaze's case, hers isn't as fast as Sonic's, but they're more shortcut oriented, so they give her more height and distance, but not as much speed. So there are some parts where Blaze has an advantage over Sonic, but usually Sonic is just faster overall because his boost is just significantly faster. Alright, so this game has 7 zones, each zone having 2 acts and 1 boss, just like classic Sonic games, and the bosses in this game have a lot of luck involved. This one isn't too terrible, and you might notice that the boss is health 6 HP when it's normally 8. That's because we speedrun this game on easy difficulty, because in most cases the bosses usually aren't really too much of a matter of skill, it's more of just luck. So reducing the health from 8 to 6 on all the bosses significantly reduces the amount of time variance from luck that is outside of the player's control, when there already is a lot in easy mode. So this boss is pretty straightforward. You want to just wait for him to attack. Whenever you see this spinning attack right here where he goes across the stage, that is random and it loses you a lot of time. You can also go back and forth twice, which loses you even more time, and there's really not much you can do about it, unfortunately. You just have to wait it out. So usually you can get like, you'll get like 2 one-roll cycles typically. I think that's like a roughly average. You're lucky if you get less. But yeah, it looks like this is just gonna be a standard fight. Not fantastic, not horrendous.
118.00.
And yeah. So sub 120 is, I think, roughly typical. So well, that went well enough. So the second zone in Sonic's story is that's Water Palace. There we go, and it's the classic water stage of the game. Of course, you can drown in this game, but you're probably never going to see the drowning timer come up. And you're going to see Speedbreaker make some some interesting little jumps here. He's going to be making some slope jumps to pretty much jump over as much of the stage as possible.
Made a shortcut.
Yeah, so that shortcut you just did is actually really tight, because if you try to go too fast, you'll hit the wall and lose all your horizontal momentum. But if you go too slow, you're just not going to have the speed to make that. And that skips a really big loop and a platform cycle. So Blaze can make it very easily. Sonic has a much harder time of it, but Speedbreaker pulls it off pretty smoothly. And yeah, he's going to be basically jumping over the rest of the stage. Fortunately, kind of ran out of boost there, so I didn't go over too much about the boost mechanic itself. So, when you press the Y button, you initiate a boost, and you use up some of the boost meter on the left side. If your boost meter hits the maximum, which is, you'll know it hits maximum and it's flashing red, then that means you have infinite boosts for a set amount of time. And you build up your boost meter by doing tricks off of springs or ramps and things like that, or rails too. So boost management is another important factor of the game to manage. You have to know like when you want to save up to hit maximum boost, or if you want to just use up your boost immediately. You almost never want to be empty.
Yeah.
You know, there's also kind of a trick combo mechanic where every time you press B, you do a trick, and then you have to press A to finish the trick, and that gives you the maximum amount of boost. It's kind of hard to tell as a viewer when he's going to be finishing the trick or not. But basically, you want to be pressing B as many times as possible, and then press A just before you land from your tricks, and that gives you as much boost as possible. This is a much more important mechanic in Sonic Rush Adventure, because in Rush Adventure, you don't get as much boost from individual tricks. Whereas in Sonic Rush, it's not quite as important because you still get a significant amount of boost per trick, even if you don't finish the combo. So yeah, the end of the stage here is pretty sketchy because you have to jump across a few platforms over a huge bottomless pit, kind of doing it blind.
Yeah, it's possible to do it blind like my IL.
Yeah.
I won't recommend it.
So, Water Palace is really fun. Like, I recommend just starting the crowd for it. It's probably one of my favorite zones to speedrun. So this boss does have a luck factor, but it's one of the more tame bosses, and we don't really have much time variance with respect to luck, thankfully. So the boss can do a body slam, or it can just try to bite you. You want it to try to bite you in this case, but it's never really going to do like each attack more than once in a row, so again, there's not going to be too much time variance. Later on in the fight, he's going to try to lower the water level and then shoot his mouth out, and that's the fastest pattern you want because you can get it hidden really quickly. Yeah, here's hoping, and yep, you see the pattern here, which as you can tell, Speedbreaker got the hit really quickly. I think he always does a body slam if I remember correctly, so it doesn't really matter.
Didn't mean to do that. Accidentally held the bottom.
Ooh.
The water. Yes. Ah, missed it.
Okay.
Crap.
Oh, that is unfortunate. Yeah, if you want to try to get the quick hit, you want to be as close to the mouth as possible, but if you mess it up, you have less time to recover, and you just saw him mess up the recovery, unfortunately. But it happens. There goes the boss. So Mirage Road is the third zone coming up. It's pretty much the desert zone, and it has some pretty swag music. This zone also introduces enemy chambers, which you're not going to see very many of because they're slow. Basically, you enter a chamber, the game gives you a number of enemies you have to kill, and you have to kill them all before you exit. He's actually going to be skipping one of them, which you'll see, I think, in Act 1 at some point. But yeah, enemy chambers are slow, so you don't want to enter them. And the early part of the stage, as you can see, has like a lot of really big shortcuts you can take by doing really big slope jumps. And as per classic Sonic, most Sonic games, you can do a slope jump by jumping off of a uphill slope to gain a lot of heights. Or if you jump off of a downhill slope, then you get more horizontal momentum. And this game is no different. But you can, because of the boost system, you can get a lot of heights by just boosting and then jumping immediately off of the incline. So during this enemy chamber, it was important to go as fast as possible because you had the invulnerability upgrade, and you want to get to the first enemy chamber as quickly as possible because you want to one-shot these giant robots with the Invincible Sonic before the invulnerability runs out. Otherwise, they take 3 hits to kill. And auto-scroller time. So, how's life?
Life? Not bad. Not bad at all.
Just keep rolling along. This is basically the end of the stage. There's like a small bit of actual platforming left right at the end of this auto-scroller, but for the most part, this is basically, I think, like a 40-second auto-scroller roughly. And you can actually get extra boost if you destroy the rocks with your own boost, but boost isn't really, you don't really need that much boost anymore at this point.
Yeah.
And also, every enemy you kill does give you boost as well, so that's something you have to factor in when you're routing your speeder.
Oh.
Nice. So Mirage Road does have some of the longest stages in the game, primarily from the auto-scrollers, because the Act 2 also has an auto-scroller in the second half of the stage. But you're going to see some fancy shortcuts he's going to be taking right off the bat in Act 2. Doing a really high slope jump to skip the first part of the stage here. And then grabbing a max boost capsule to get a boost for some time, and also just falling down these giant slopes. So yeah, this is a skip for an enemy chamber. You saw him do a little air dash after just falling into a hole, and that's because he skipped the trigger for activating the enemy chamber, which is, well, it's faster because you skip an enemy chamber. And there's a lot of boost pads in this stage, and like, oh, nice. Boost pads behave kind of weirdly in auto rush games. For the most part, when you hit a boost pad, they lock your speed in that direction. So like say if you hit a boost pad shooting you right and you jump and try to go left, you can't go left for the next second or so because your speed is just horizontally locked. There are some cases where it's useful to take advantage of that, but in a lot of cases you actually want to avoid boost pads because of how it locks your speed and horizontal controls. And when you saw the giant platform jump, you want to hold left, I think, and that saves you like a second for some reason. And that's like the only real way to save time on this auto-scroller. There's another auto-scroller later on in the game where you just hold a certain direction, then you just end up saving time. The game's kind of janky like that sometimes. This auto-scroller is kind of interesting because it's like, it kind of puts you on a 3D playing field where you can kind of move towards the screen or away from the screen, and so on. I think this is the only part in the game that does that, which is a little unfortunate, I guess, because it is kind of a cool thing. I don't think it's in any of the Rush games, besides this one specific spot. But given it's an auto-scroller, there isn't really much else going on. Right, so I guess I can quickly talk about the boss coming up. X-Scarab is probably one of the worst bosses in the game. So what you have to do with X-Scarab is that you have to wait for X-Scarab to throw the ball, and then wait for the ball to unspike, and then hit the ball back. And you have to do it a little bit late, or else he's just going to catch the ball, and then you're not going to do any damage at all. And this is all random. When he shoots the ball is random, when it unspikes is random, whether he dodges the ball is random, and at some point in the in this fight, he also has a random chance to just go straight to the middle and throw spike balls at you, and there's no way to hit him during that. All you can do is wait it out, and I think it's like a 15 to 20 second time loss each time he does, and there's not much you can do about it. So yeah, again, you don't want to hit the ball back too early. You want to hit the ball back after Eggman flips around so that you hit the back, and that was one of the cases where you saw him, Speedbreaker, get a little unlucky with the X-Scarab dodging that ball. Like, this fight can very easily go past like the 2.5 minute mark if you're really unlucky. 2 minute mark.
Got him.
Yeah, this is the best pattern. Like, if he just shoots the ball immediately without walking, like, it just saves you so much time. Like, getting a fight within like around 1.5 minutes is a really good time, and you both executed well and got really lucky.
Nope. Until time.
Yeah, that is this is the pattern you don't want to see. You can't really do much about it. It just costs time. So yeah, this was gonna be like a really good fight, and then that happened. But this is still a good time. So. Yep, that's X-Scarab for ya. It didn't look as bad as it could have been, but we got a relatively lucky fight overall. So, and again, that fight can easily go like past 2 to 2.5 minute mark if you're really unlucky. Alright, Night Carnival. This stage, I personally, this is probably like one of my least favorite stages when I was playing the game, but when you learn the routes, I think it's actually really fun to do. Although there are like a lot of bottomless pits you have to be careful of, but once you learn where they are, it's a pretty fun stage to execute. And there's kind of a gimmick in the stage where you want to be hitting these switches that lights up these rails, and that lets you, well, grind the rails. You usually kind of want to avoid them because they take you on some slower paths. And you see Speedbreaker taking another reverse slope jump here to do a bit of a skip. So usually when you're running downhill, you usually want to jump downhill, like just fall down, because falling down is usually faster than just running downhill. This is generally going to be the case for really steep downhill slopes, and you're going to see that. You saw that in the first stage of Leaf Storm, you see it in this stage, you're going to see it a bit more later on, such as in Deadline, last zone. There's kind of a concept of the speed cap in this game, not really the same as Sonic 2, but basically when you boost on flat ground, you're kind of already at your maximum speed and you can't really go any faster. But if you, say, land on a downhill slope or roll down a downhill slope or whatnot, then you can break that speed cap and go faster than speed cap allows you to. Which is why a lot of times you see Speedbreaker like trying to do a jump and then land on a downhill slope, because that breaks the speed cap and lets you go a bit faster. That also applies to, say, if you're doing a loop jump, because when you do a jump in a loop to the bottom corner, you're technically landing on a downhill slope, and that also breaks the speed cap. It's not quite as important for Sonic, but it is very important to maintain for Blaze, because her speed cap is a lot more limiting than Sonic's. Another example of where just falling down is faster than running or rolling down. Yeah, a little bit of platforming here. This is slow, but there's really no way to skip it. Because of how the speed cap mechanics work, that also means you usually want to avoid uphill slopes if you can, which is why sometimes you'll see Speedbreaker just jumping over uphill slopes. You're going to see a series of reverse slope jumps just to make some really big jumps and skip more parts of the stage. Those balloons that he just jumped through conveniently gives you, I think, a maximum boost, which is really nice, because you kind of are at a point where you are just about to run out of boost, so it's very convenient. And this is one of the longer stages in the game too. I think you're typically gonna get like a 2-minute time. So this boss coming up is, well, it's kind of random. It is random, but Diamond 44444444 found this sort of setup that Speedbreaker's gonna go for, and if he gets the setup correctly, then this boss is just gonna die instantly, basically. Because basically what you're supposed to do is wait for the ball with the barrier to turn off the barrier and then hit it. And each time you hit the boss, Eggman drops a little car on the bottom that you can jump on, and that lets you just shoot upward. And then when you shoot upward by hitting the little car, you can also hit Eggman in the air. So even if you get unlucky or you miss a hit, then you usually have some sort of backup with that little car to hit Eggman with. The Quake attack is not something you want to see, unfortunately. Ooh, yeah, that is some unfortunate luck. But you got a double hit there, which is what you want to see. That ending was very smooth. That was a really good recovery. What was that, like 4 hits in a row, just like that? Okay, so we're 4 zones down and 3 to go. This one coming up is... oh, God, I forgot the name of it. I don't remember the name of it.
Huge Crisis.
But it's... yeah. It's, Huge Crisis. There we go, Huge Crisis. It's one of the cooler zones. It has a lot of rails that you have to go through, and again, this zone also introduces more enemy chambers, but again, you want to skip as many of them as possible. You can do, quote-quote, reverse slope jumps off of rails, which pretty much do the same thing, except off of a rail instead of an uphill slope, and that just gives you more height. Huge Crisis is probably the one stage that is the most cycle-dependent, because you have to keep in mind all of the global cycles for the pistons, because they can just crush you if you're not careful. There are also these little cars that you can ride on, and you're supposed to jump in them, wait on a 3-second timer, and then they shoot you forward, but skipping them is obviously a lot faster. Yeah, again, rolling down these hills to break and maintain speed cap. And you can also, in a few specific spots in the stage, for some reason, there's like a wall or two that you can just walk up for some reason. I think it has to do with how the game wants you to, how the gravity works around the pulleys. I actually don't really know how it works entirely, but there was one spot in this stage where that was the case, and there's another one later on in Act 2 where you can just touch a wall to quote-quote stand on it and then just boost off of it. Let's do it! Okay, Act 2, we're going to be seeing like 2 or 3 enemy chambers that you can't really skip. This is probably one of the few stages where Blaze actually competes with Sonic in terms of being faster, because Blaze has this glitch where if you hover into a pulley and jump off of it, she can kind of enter a really floaty state and jump really high. You usually don't want to do it because it's slow, but in the case of this stage, it lets you skip a lot of the stage. But Sonic can't do that, but he's still almost faster than her anyways, if not faster. I don't remember if Speedbreaker's time to Sonic's faster than Blaze's time. So one thing to note about optimizing enemy rooms is that for the last enemy on the screen, you do not want to boost through them, because when you boost through an enemy, the enemy still is technically alive while it flies off the screen, and only counts as dead once it's completely off the screen, which usually costs you almost a second. Which is why, in every enemy chamber, you want the last enemy you kill to be one you just roll through or jump on, rather than boosting through it. So right here, this is another case where Speedbreaker did not boost through the enemies, instead he just spin dash through all of them, so he doesn't have to wait for the enemies to die. So he's going to be he took advantage of a homing attack here. Normally that little pipe shoots you into the little car that forces a 3-second timer and it shoots you forward, but by abusing the homing attack to aim at the ring box to the left, you can skip that, which is really nice. And that's the end of Huge Crisis 2. Pretty smooth. It's very easy to get crushed if you're not careful, so definitely a stage where you really want to memorize all the cycles. Be wary of where they are. So this boss looks like the very first boss because it is basically the first boss, just upgraded. And by upgraded, I mean with more luck. It's pretty much the same. Just wait for him to come down. He doesn't have the rolling back and forth attack anymore, but what he does have is this attack where he goes in the background like this and shoots a bunch of missiles at you, and you can't really do anything except just wait. Yeah. Not much you can do about it. And later on in this fight, he can do that 2 times in a row, and if it happens, then the game just hates you, because that's roughly like a 30 to 40 second time loss right there. But you can't get fights where he doesn't do it at a single time, and it just goes by so quickly. You get lucky. So this is definitely one of the worst bosses, luck-wise. Not quite as bad as X-Scarab from Mirage Road, but still be pretty bad. So yeah, going through the background again, this is the second time. I think one time I was watching, who was it? I think it was Amber Siberian stream, playing Sonic Rush, and she got like the god pattern for this boss, and Diamond and I were both watching, we were like, wow, you got the god pattern, how dare you? Because this boss did not give her any of the background attacks, and we were just so sad and annoyed about it. In a freaking casual playthrough, but you know, it happens. It happens. But yeah, so yeah, this is the third attack he's going in the background for, fortunately. Hopefully doesn't do it twice in a row. It can happen. Okay. This boss wasn't great, but what can you do about it? Speedbreaker did what he could with the luck he was given. Okay, so this next stage is Altitude Limit. It's kind of the quote-quote sky stage. It has a lot of rails and cannons, and a lot of bottomless pits. So it's very easy to make this jump somewhere and then just die. There is an interesting little glitch that Speedbreaker is going to be using later on, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Again, this stage has a lot of opportunities to abuse reverse slope jumps to take really big shortcuts. And this zone also introduces these parachute spots, whatever they're called. Ooh, that is unfortunate.
Yeah, I restarted for that, fortunately.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that jump right there is blind, and if you kind of mess it up, then yeah, it's really just there. It's a difficult zone. So you saw Speedbreaker do a little bit of an interesting jump at the very start of the stage, where if you land on the very tip of that rail, you kind of quote-unquote jump off of it for some reason. And that just gives you a little bit of extra height without losing speed. Skip the rest of the rails. Yeah, this parachuting section, you want to take damage as soon as possible because falling down is just a lot faster than floating downward. And there's going to be another one coming up where he's going to be taking damage intentionally to skip floating downward. Well, no, I'm thinking of actually never mind. It's a different part. I think that's pretty much it for the stage. Outside of, well, the auto-scroller coming up. What you want to do for this auto-scroller, it looks scary because you can get hit really easily and the depth perception looks pretty janky, but if you just hug the right side of the screen, then you'll never get hit, so...
Yeah, will give you many advantages.
Right. Just hold right and you're fine. It is also just faster to hold right because at the end of the auto-scroller, when you hold right, the closer you are to the right side of the screen, the further right you are when you end the auto-scroller, meaning you'll gain control more quickly. Act 2 also has one of these, although it is a lot shorter, thankfully. we're just about at the end of the stage. We're going to be seeing some hardcore platforming. If he's perfect with his platforming, you can make this a platform earlier than you're expected to, which saves a bit of time. But yeah, that looks about expected. You can make it from the far left platform, but you have to be really fast to make that, and not exactly marathon safe to go for that. So yeah, Act 2. So most rails in this game, when you land on a rail, you always land on a rail, but when you jump off of the same rail, you're always going to fall through that rail, and it's thankfully something that they fixed from the advanced games, because rails are actually generally well programmed in this game compared to the advanced games that they aren't. But this rail here is like the exception, because no matter how many times you jump, you're not really going to fall through this rail. Speedbreaker did kind of a little interesting trick where he did a forward trick into the very tip of a rail, and that makes him go super fast through that rail. And there's also like a bunch of spikes in that rail that you can just boost through, and they give you boost, and also you are, yeah. You're basically invulnerable to spikes when you're boosting, and that's actually going to be taken advantage of later on, because when you boost, you can literally run on spikes without taking damage, as long as you're still boosting. That will come up later in the last zone. So right here, Speedbreaker is going to be taking the damage intentionally off of these spikes because he wants to fall down. Actually, not take damage. He wants to maintain boost so you can just run off the spikes as you just saw without actually taking damage. And then you immediately jump off before the boost runs out. And then you can just kind of take a shortcut without having to slope downward. There's going to be an interesting glitch coming up where if you're holding revving a spin dash, while you're revving a spin dash, if you boost, you can boost yourself off a ledge while still revving a spin dash, and then you can release that spin dash in the air. So that's going to be really useful near the end of the stage coming up, where you can boost off of spikes after taking some damage, and then release the spin dash into a tiny little tunnel that will let you skip another parachuting section. So that's going to be coming up soon. I recommend not blinking because it's going to go by right here. Oh, you missed it, unfortunately.
Yeah, too early.
You can do the same thing with Blaze, but there isn't really too much point in it because you can just cover anyways.
Yeah, you can boost across them.
Yeah, you can. We got this little gimmick here, but not too big of a deal. And that was Altitude Limit. So we have the boss coming up, and as you can expect, it has a lot of luck involved. So this boss has certain different patterns you can do. It can be in the background and just shoot shots at you. I think it does that between every single attack, so there's really not much you can do about it. What you want it to do is you want him to try to slam himself into the stage, because that's when you have an opportunity to land the hit. You need to jump the moment he slams into the stage, otherwise he's going to stun you with Earthquake. The other pattern you want to see is him jumping up and down on the stage. And this is probably like the best thing you can see happen because you can get 2 quick hits in. The win pattern here, where you're supposed to match A and B, is the worst thing that can happen because there's nothing you can really do about it. And it's just a flat time loss. So that pattern is one you do not want to see. So yeah, basically you don't want to see Eggman helping in the background and doing stuff, and you don't want to see this matching pattern again, because it's just another time loss. So we're already getting really bad luck here, unfortunately. Eggman usually does his jumping attack on the stage at this point, so I'm surprised he hasn't done it yet. But bad luck, I guess. Ah, yeah, here it is. Okay. So, as you can tell, that pattern is very fast. 3 win patterns. Whew. That is unfortunate. That is unfortunate. So one fun fact about this game, and actually all the Rush games, that's kind of hard to notice, but every time you get hit with some wings, oh god, 4 times, holy crap. But each time you get hit, your rings fly further and further in this game, and also rush to enter until there's DS. And that's kind of incentive for you to, well, not just tank an entire fight with just one. So taking hits does matter. It doesn't really matter too much in Sonic Rush, because no fight's really that long to the point where it matters, but there are some bosses in Rush Adventure where it actually is important to keep track of. It's like, as you saw when you got hit there, all the rings flew out really far. But yeah, that fight did not go very well, unfortunately.
Should we try this again?
But again, it was mostly luck. I don't think I've ever seen 4 win patterns in one fight, so that was really bad. Alright, this is what you need, because we're about to see the last one in the game, probably one of the coolest ones. There's like 3 or 4 different routes you can take at the start of the stage. You can take like a missile route, because this zone introduces some giant missiles that you can kind of carry, and they're really fast, but they're really awkward to navigate. Okay, right here he's riding on the missile, and he has to carefully navigate his way through corridors. Unfortunately, he was a little bit too high. You want to be carrying this missile all the way up to the platform up here. It's not the end of the world. Kind of a little skip right there. Hitting a pass swapper to make the game think he's on the other side of the loop. And yes, this game also has the same kind of concept as pass swapper in most of these Sonic games. Basically, there are invisible path swappers that makes the game realize which layer of the stage you're on. Which, there's always going to be one in every single. Again, another one of those cases where jumping down and falling is usually faster than trying to roll or run downhill. Yeah, that missile that he just skipped is slower. You kind of just jump over it. Controlling Sonic right there before that huge column of loops, so it's kind of awkward because you just hit a speed boost pad and that kind of locks your speed to the right, so you kind of have to wait it out until your speed lock is gone, and then you can move right apart all through the loops. Alright, Act 2. This very first part of the stage is a giant missile. It's not difficult, you just have to go right. And this stage also really likes having a lot of springs. It's a good opportunity to use it. So right here, what Speed Breaker's going for is a little skip. By jumping off of the green drape as late as possible, you can actually move really quickly and skip the trigger for that enemy chamber, which you probably missed because I just mentioned it right when we went through it. But yeah, there's supposed to be an enemy chamber there, but he skipped it. Pretty cool. As far as I know, Blaze can't do that trick. I've never done it before. Navigating these corridors is just kind of weird because, well, sometimes you just trick too early, and then you just bonk your head on the ceiling. So there was another reverse slope jump right there. You kind of get a loop, but normally you're supposed to run downhill to the bottom right corner of a room, go to the upper right corner, and run all the way down to the bottom left corner, and then get back up to the top of the area, but he skipped all of that with that jump. So here he's going to be taking advantage of boost to run across the spike soon. Here. It's coming up soon. And it's a little bit faster than just taking the missiles. Yeah, right there. Just run across the spike, jump on the boat. And again, jumping down a little hill again to break speed caps. He goes faster than the boost allows him to. That was really smooth, just navigating all of those little corridors. That was a really good deadline too. Good job.
Thanks. Pretty bad though. Final boss. Well, almost final boss.
Alright, so, yep. Boss coming up. Sonic versus Blaze. It's random, but there are some sort of setups you can do to get some quick hits in. Basically, you kind of just want to be interfacing something into her over and over again and hoping she doesn't attack you. If you can't hit her while she's grabbing up, you can't hit her while she jumps. Usually she's going to be vulnerable right after a hit dash, so that's a good opportunity to get her to get hit.
Got it.
And once G reaches 1 HP, you have to mash a lot to go as fast as you can. There's a similar mashing section in Colors DS actually in the last boss, but for some reason in that mashing section, all 4 face buttons work, so you can kind of just end that section in like less than a second by mashing all 4 buttons really quickly. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in this case. Alright, so this is the last boss. Yeah, this boss has a lot of attacks. He's always going to be doing, I think, one attack every time? It's been a while. But basically, there is luck involved with this boss, but it's usually not in the video as long as you don't get hit. If you get hit, then that means Eggman's always going to do another attack before he makes the double. So the priority here is to not worry about specific patterns per se, but rather don't get hit. So right here, Speed Breaker is taking advantage of a little speed exploit where your physics just work differently between bosses and the stages. And if you do a spin dash and you jump after that and land, you just go really fast. And he's gonna be doing that for every hit to try to skip a cycle, because if you're on Eggman's arm for too long, he'll try to shake you off. And if he does, then you have to hold down, and that costs a second. So you want to go fast enough where you don't have to see that. Most of the patterns aren't really too big of a deal. The pattern you do not want to see is the electricity pattern. That pattern is 1, really long, and 2, very hard to dodge. So it can be pretty long. Okay, the boss is halfway done. We're going to be reaching time soon. HP left, basically 1 HP because the last hit special, just like with the blaze fight. Oh, this is not the pattern you want to do. So the idea behind this pattern is that you want to be in between like your barriers, so that's how you dodge it, because they can kind of go outward, and outside of them, then you're going to get hurt. So that's how you dodge those. So the more hits you deal, the more quickly Eggman's going to try to shake you off. So it's really risky, if not impossible, to try to go for it without holding down on the last hit. But yeah, and this is the actual last hit on the fight. Timer freezes. He's going to try to destroy the stage, and this is kind of one of those really intense. The game tries to make the game really intense for the last hit, and if you die, you can wait too long, but just get a hit in after waiting a few seconds.
Time
will be now.
GG.
GG. I'm playing back the stream right now, but that looks like it was roughly a mid 42. Yeah, 42:25 real time. Good run, GG.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good run.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for running.
Thanks for having me too.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, you too, Cubby.
So
you too.
Pretty refreshing.
That is SB55. If you're interested, give them a follow. And again, big thanks to both him and Kirby Master for the commentary and the run. That is Sonic Rush. Don't go anywhere, friends. We're nearing the end of the Sonic block, and indeed the end of Blast the Process. But we still got a little bit to go. We have Sonic Adventure DX next with LWSS. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
See ya.